Good morning, everyone. Myself, Dr. Paramesh Gowda, SV, Senior Lecturer. I will be taking class today. That is about soldering and welding. Coming to the introduction, soldering is used commonly in dentistry to describe most metal joining processes that involve the flow of a filler metal between two or more metal components. Nothing but this is soldering. We are generally used in dentistry. Most commonly, we use this in prosthodontics and in orthodontics. So, as we know, generally the soldering it's about the joining of two metal components by adding a filler metal as a one more metal component in between. Okay, coming to the definition. Definition I have divided into the different parts for you guys to understand it better. So soldering is a group of processes that join metals by heating them to a suitable temperature, that is below the solidus of the substrate metals, and by applying a filler metal having a liquidus not exceeding 450 degrees Celsius without appreciably affecting the dimensions of the joint structure. What does this mean is soldering is nothing but a group of processes. It's a group of processes which involves joining of two metals by introducing a third metal in between. The third metal, whatever we introduce, that is called as a filler metal. So two substrate metals is joined by adding a third filler metal and by heating the temperature which is not exceeding 450 degrees Celsius. This temperature range is very important because if it exceeds 450 degrees Celsius, that is called as brazing, that is not soldering. So temperature we should keep in mind. So, and one more thing is we shouldn't affect any dimension of the wire which are being joined together. So this is the main thing. This is about your definition. We should divide it into these parts so that you understand it better. So coming to the brazing, what I told you is this brazing is the same thing with whenever the temperature exceeds more than 450 degrees Celsius. You can read it again. That is the process of joining closely approximated solid parts by heating them to a suitable temperature below the solidus temperature of the parts and allowing a filler metal. Having a liquidus temperature above 450 degrees Celsius. In soldering, it is below 450 degrees Celsius, but in brazing, it is above 450 degrees Celsius. To melt and flow by capillary attraction between the parts without appreciably affecting the dimension of the joint structure. Same as the soldering, but above 450 degrees Celsius. Whenever the temperature is above 450 degrees Celsius, it is brazing. See, this is what the basic difference between the soldering and brazing lies in the liquidus temperature of the filler metal. Above 450 is brazing, below 450 is soldering. And then coming to the welding. Welding is the joining of two or more metal pieces by applying heat, pressure, or both without a filler metal to produce a localized union across the interface through fusion or diffusion. This is nothing but welding. Whenever you're doing, you don't add any filler metal in between. So this is about welding is by joining two metal parts without adding any filler metal by applying pressure and heat. This is about your welding. See, coming to the difference between the soldering and welding, the major difference between soldering and welding is possible absence of a filler metal and partial fusion of the parts joined by welding. So there is no filler metal in between in the welding. Coming to the soldering process involves, what all the soldering process involves? First one, the substrate or the parent metal. Like I said, there are two metals which you are going to join. Then the solder, which you're going to, that is the third metal which you're going to add in between to join these things. And the flux is the thing which we add to control the flow of control or to promote the flow and to reduce the impurities. Whenever we are doing soldering, the flux will be added, and the heat source, definitely the heat source has to be there to do this process. Coming to the substrate or the parent metal. The substrate metal or the basis metal in the original pure metal or alloy that is prepared for joining to the another substrate metal or alloy. It's nothing but the substrate or parent metal is the metal which we are using, which are the metal which are supposed to be joined by using the third metal like a filler metal. So that is a substrate metal, that is also a parent metal. Mainly the first used parent metals or the substrate metals for soldering were gold-based alloys. These were the first used metals. And nowadays what we use most commonly is our stainless steel metal. So soldering operations are the same for any substrate metal. Ease of soldering varies. So whenever we are doing soldering, whatever the metal we are using, the process will be same. The process what you are doing is same. Two metals will be joined by adding a third metal. That is always same. But the ease of soldering and the way you solder will be different. Coming to the most commonly used parent metal or substrate metal, that is your stainless steel. The stainless steel alloy are the major system used in orthodontics. When 12 to 30% of the chromium is added to the steel, it is referred to as stainless steel. About stainless steel, there will be another chapter which will be done, another class which will be taken. Just want you to know what exactly the stainless steel is. So for that, I'm just giving the introduction about your stainless steel. That is, the stainless steel is the steel which which that 12 to 30% chromium will be added to make it as a stainless steel. So that is a stainless steel. And there are three types of stainless steel. Generally, one it is ferritic, one it is martensic, and one is austenitic. So this is the stainless steel. This is a brief introduction about stainless steel, but stainless steel will be a separate chapter which will be done for you guys in the later classes. Coming to the solder, the second one we discussed about the substrate metal, then coming to the solder, that is your filler metal. That is your dental gold solders are given a fineness designed to indicate the proportion of a pure gold contained in 1,000 parts of alloy. So mainly the solder, uh, whatever we use are gold solders or silver solders, mainly because of its purity and its nobleness. So we use mostly the gold solder or silver solder. The solder must be compatible with the oxide-free substrate metal. This is the main important thing in soldering. See, whenever we are adding the solder, we have to make sure this is compatible with the metals what we are fusing. So whenever solder, you can't use some solder to a random metal. No, it has to be compatible, and the temperature, the liquidus temperature of your solder should be below the liquidus temperature of the metals we are being joined. So this should be considered whenever we are doing. And compatibility consists of mainly few requirements. There are few requirements for the compatibility of your dental solders. So coming to the classification of dental solders, what's exactly the classification of dental solders? The solders may be divided into two major groups based on the melting temperature. One is soft solders and one is hard solders. Whatever we use in this one is uh, the hard solders, not the soft solders, because the soft solders have a low melting point of 250 degrees Celsius and can be applied by simple means like hot soldering iron, but they lack corrosion resistance. What we exactly want when we do soldering and all this corrosion resistance is very important because we are placing it in the mouth where all the time your whatever we have placed in the mouth, whatever the component we are given is coming in contact with saliva. Whenever something comes in contact with saliva, we have to make sure that is corrosion resistant. So these soft solders are not suitable for the dental use as because of the lack of corrosion resistance. The example of this soft solders are lead tin solders. Coming to the hard solders, which we use in our dental purpose, that is eye melting, and which have high melting temperature and have greater strength and hardness, which is important, and melted with the help of gas blow torches or liquid blow torches, depending on whichever we use, and occasionally electric furnace can also be used. And hard solders are commonly used in dentistry. They are the gold solders and silver solders, like I mentioned to you guys before. Coming to the application of solder, the soldering various types of wires in the orthodontics definitely, and fixed processes and repairing the perforations in the crowns and bridges to develop contact points in the crowns, and then soldering of glass. These are the application of your solders. Coming to the composition of solders, just have a look in this. We don't go in detail in the composition of solders. I just want you guys to know the percentage of this. The gold solder generally contains the 45 to 80% of the gold, and silver to 80 to 30%, copper 7 to 20%, tin 2 to 4%, and zinc 2 to 4%. This is the main thing, and generally the gold solders, the main composition will be the gold, that is 45 to 80%. Coming to the composition of the silver solder, which is most commonly used in our orthodontic purpose. These are the low fusing solders required for soldering operations on stainless steel and other metal alloys. Generally, we use this in our stainless steel things. That is, the composition of silver in this silver solder will be 10 to 80%, and copper will be 15 to 50%, zinc will be 4 to 35%, and just trace amounts of cadmium and phosphorus. Coming to silver solders are generally preferred in orthodontics. Why they generally preferred in orthodontics? Because they minimize the carbon precipitation and excessive softening of the wire. So they don't generally does the carbon precipitation. They minimize it, and excessive softening of the wire will be avoided by using your silver solder. Because of their low fusion temperature, the resistance to corrosion is decreased. In turn, because of the low fusion temperature, the resistance to corrosion is decreased, so hence they are more prone to it. But however, it is not too objectable because whatever the orthodontic appliance whichever you use are temporary, not permanent. So the silver solvers can be used in spite, even though they have that corrosion resistance, fit deficiency in corrosion resistance, because whatever orthodontic appliance we use are for the less duration. So it doesn't matter much when we are using in your orthodontic purpose. Coming to advantages of your solder. Solders are easy to use and relatively inexpensive. Low energy is required to solder. Definitely, then properly soldered joints are highly reliable. This is the advantage of your soldering. So when you are soldering, if you are preferring the advantages, properly soldered joints are highly reliable than your welding whenever you compare with welding. And soldered joints are easy to rework and repair. And experienced individuals can exercise a high degree of control over the soldering process. Whenever doing soldering process, one thing is the experience in doing that is very important. So that will be helpful. And solder joints are aged very well and they can last for years, decades, and centuries. So solder joints are so reliable. Coming to the soldering flux, the Latin word flux means flow. So these are the flux which we use for flow of your the third like a solder, like a filler metal. So and to remove the impurities which are there whenever we are doing the soldering process. So flux is a chemical compound used to promote the bonding of the metals by removing the oxide residues simultaneously with the soldering process. Each mix of the metal being joined as a specific flux that best promotes this bonding process. So flux is this, and types of fluxes what we use according to their primary purpose. Surface protection, reducing agent, solvent. This can be used as a surface protection agent and as a reducing agent and as a solvent. That is the surface protection. They cover the metal surface and prevent access to oxygen so that no oxides can form. So whenever we are doing soldering, we make sure the soldering joint wherever you're doing are covered with the flux so that it will prevent the oxygen to enter and to not to form any oxides there. And as a reducing agent, whatever any oxides present already in the metal will be removed, will be cleaned by these fluxes. That is, the reduces any oxides present and exposes clean metal. And one more is a solvent. It acts by dissolving the oxides and carries them away. Whatever the oxides are there, it will dissolve and carry them away. So it acts as a solvent also. These are the three uses of your fluxes and three types also. So as a surface protection, as a reducing agent, and as a solvent. So composition of fluxes. What exactly are the composition of fluxes? So mainly you should know what exactly the material what we use as a flux. That is, borax glass is frequently used with gold alloys because it is affinity to copper oxide. So generally borax glass will be used. That fluxes with noble metal alloys are based on boric and borate compound. This is very important. You should remember this boric and borate compound thing that are boric acid 35%, silica 10%, borax glass 55%. So they act as a protective fluxes, that is type 1 by forming low temperature gases. Okay, and the type 2 is also reducing fluxes, and they are for low stability oxides like copper oxide. So type 1 are protective fluxes, type 2 are reducing fluxes. Coming to the flux, anti-flux. That's whenever the flux, there is an anti-flux. It helps us in preventing the excessive flow of your metal. So anti-flux used to limit the flow of your solder. The metal surfaces are clean. Any excess solder introduced, the work gap will tend to flow into the unwanted area. So this anti-flux will help in prevention of that. Graphite is often used as an anti-flux. So this is the anti-flux we generally use, that is graphite. The disadvantage is at high temperature, the carbon easily evaporates, leaving the workplace unprotected. So graphite is not used whenever the high temperature, whenever we are soldering in the high temperature. So graphite is used in soldering in the low temperature, but in high temperature it has no use. So one more is iron oxide can be used. It's a more reliable anti-flux, which is solvent like turpentine can be painted on the surface with the bristol brush. So most commonly for the high temperatures and all, you can use the iron oxide. So for the low temperature, you can use a graphite as an anti-flux. This is how your good soldering joint looks. After all these processes, when you solder, this is how your good soldering joint looks. A good soldering joint shows the following qualities. That is, your smooth and polished surface. It should be smooth and polished surface, and a shiny finish should be seen. Coming to the welding, the joining of two or more metal pieces by applying heat. So, as I told you before, joining of two or more metal pieces by applying heat, pressure, and both without a filler metal is produced a local union across the interface through fusion or diffusion. So, whenever you don't add any filler metal in between, that is your welding. So, localized union it is by applying pressure at heat. Welds are made by passing electric current through the pieces to be joined, which are pressed together. So this is how you do welding. The current eats the metal, which becomes plastic, and the pressure forges the softened metal into a single piece. This is how your welding works. Whenever current passes, the two metal parts will be fused by applying pressure as well as your current or your heat. And coming to the laser welding, in the welding there is one more called laser welding, which is the recent development, which recently we use. Nowadays we most commonly use and we most commonly prefer to use, because laser welding is very simple and very accurate, and the welds which will long for very longer time, and the process is very simple also compared to your normal traditional welding. So coming to laser welding is high production welding process that produces deep penetrating welds with minimum heat effective zones. So whenever the minimum heat effective zone, this will produce the high uh, quality welding. So laser welding is advantage of welding dissimilar metal by producing very low heat. So generally the conventional welding, what we do, you fuse is a similar metal, but in laser welding we have also have a access to weld the two and different metals. And coming to laser welding unit, this is how your laser welding unit looks. The unit consists of a small type of box that contain a laser tip. Definitely should have a laser tip, an argon gas source, and a stereo microscope for a precise alignment of the laser beam. You can see a stereo microscope there, which is used for the precise alignment. We can see through this and we can access the welding, how it is going on. Coming to the advantages of laser welding over our conventional welding, so high metal without difficulty. This process, high metals without variable high metals without difficulty, can be used in open air, so there is no problem. Can be transmitted over long distance with a minimal loss of power. So narrow heat affected zones will be there, and low total thermal input. Welds dissimilar metals. This is the most important advantage, and no filler metal necessary. This is the advantage of welding itself, and no secondary finishing necessary. So because the laser welding is so precise, there is no secondary finishing or polishing necessary after the welding, and extremely accurate as it is laser welded, and welds high alloy metals without difficulty. The same thing which I told the first point. And coming to the disadvantage of laser welding, that is rapid cooling rate may cause cracking in the certain metals. What happens in laser welding is, soon after you weld, it will be rapidly cooled, because whenever that is a heat source which is welding, so it will be rapidly cooled. Since it rapidly cools, the chances of cracking which is developing in the welding joint. So that is your disadvantage, and it's high cost. Definitely laser it is. So whenever we talk about laser, it is cost factor will be there. And optical surface easily damaged. Whatever we are using the stereo microscope, like I said, but to weaving, those can be easily damaged, and high maintenance cost. Definitely it's costly, and the maintenance, if anything damages, it will be replacement will be costly. So it is high maintenance cost. Coming to conclusion, after all these soldering welding processes, so whenever we are applying soldering welding, we should make sure you are good at that, and whatever you're doing should be accurate. And by using these processes, you should make the better appliances for the patient and deliver it better by using your skills in your soldering and welding. So though soldering and welding is a routine procedure employed in orthodontic clinic, we fail to look into the basic mechanism. So these facts can help us in increasing the quality of joinability and decreasing the chair side time by preventing the failure in soldering and welding. So whenever soldering and welding we are employing, we should be very careful about that, and we should make sure perfectly the work is done, so that whenever we are delivering it to the patient mouth, shouldn't have any problem in that. So nowadays the soldering welding in the clinical area is limited. Still the usage is done. So whenever you're using, you should be well versed in that soldering and welding processes. And the recent concept in the field again improves the quality of orthodontic treatment, and it is on us to update ourselves with the latest to provide the quality treatment to our patients. So whenever you're doing welding, if you really want to do, like what it does mean is like we should upgrade it to the laser welding and the recent advances rather than your conventional welding, because it has many disadvantages over your recent and new techniques. This is about your soldering and welding. Thank you.